You're listening to Secret Sonics, a podcast exploring the creative side of music production. Hey guys, welcome back to Secret Sonics. Before we get into this episode, I just want to give you a disclaimer. This is an extremely long episode. Sam just started talking and everything was so good. I couldn't really stop the train from rolling, and it just became a really long episode. So I hope you enjoy it, and I hope that there's some great takeaways, because I really think there's some serious nuggets of wisdom in here. And also, I would like to mention that Sam also has a podcast called The Attack and Release Show, and you should definitely check that out, and I'll have a link in the show notes. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Sam Moses of Moses Mastering in Nashville, Tennessee. Hello, and welcome back to Secret Sonics. I am your host, Ben Wallach. My guest today is Sam Moses. Sam is the owner of Moses Mastering in Nashville, Tennessee. He is a voting member of the Grammy Recording Academy, AES, and is a part of the Grammy Next Class. His work has been featured on Billboard charts multiple times, as well as landing #1 spots on iTunes. Moses' clients have included indie and major label artists, as well as Dove and Grammy Award winners. Sam has also landed TV and film placements for the Emmy Award-winning show Born This Way on A&E, as well as placements with Forever 21, MTV, Hallmark, Patagonia, Roxy, and Bacardi. He is also an alumnus of Mix with the Masters in 2013, where he was selected as one of 14 candidates worldwide to study in France under Joe Barresi. He has also shadowed with Eric Nelson, as well as producing for Silver Medallion on Get Right Records, owned by the world-famous DJ Benzi. Former guest Josh Bonanno recommended I reach out to Sam, and Sam has been super gracious with me. So welcome to the show, Sam.
Thank you for having me. It's a gift to talk to you.
That is too kind. Well, tell us a bit about how you got into music production.
Sure. Well, my story is like incredibly long, and there's a million people and steps that, really got me to where I am. Basically, I've been in the music industry for like 10 years. I started playing guitar probably 15 years ago at church, as a lot of people do. Grew up similar to Josh, probably, that you spoke with last time. People listen to him, like kind of in church setting, Christian conservative, Illinois, Bible Belt area. And I kind of got into playing electric guitar there, and that led into being in a band. This would have been 10 or 11 years ago. And we cut a album and did the whole band thing and kind of got semi-successful. My band and I, mates, joke about us being the most successful band you've never heard of. We managed to basically get label deals offered to us, and played some really cool shows with people. And I was just getting engaged at the time. I had just gotten engaged when we started to do a little tour. And a super long story short is our band basically had a couple offers here in Nashville. And at the time we were in Chicago, Illinois, and they asked us to move to Nashville. And the band members, we couldn't all basically agree to move together. And so the band actually dissolved. And as quick as we had offers on the table, they pulled the offers, which is very standard. And then I was left out of a band, no money, engaged, just getting married a couple months later. And I basically went back to the people that helped make our album and said, like, hey, I know that we paid you up front with the studio world, this type of stuff, and it didn't matter if we got famous or not. So I want that gig instead of the tour life. So I was like, let me get into the studio world. And at the time then, it was a ton of the guys that kind of helped us with the album were big into hip-hop and rap in Chicago. I've always liked hip-hop and rap. I was the kid that, growing up the way I did, I wasn't really allowed to listen to rap music, but I would like record it off the radio on a boombox, take it into the closet at night, play it super quiet. I did that for years and years in secret.
Did you have like a favorite hip-hop artist?
Yeah, I mean, at the time it was, Jay-Z, Tech Nine, Tupac, Biggie. Those were like the four kind of classics that got me going into it. I got into Twista, kind of that whole, I guess it would have been early 2000s era.
Like the Blueprint era kind of thing.
That, yes. And so I would listen to rap all the time, but I say that because it's always been a part of me. And in Chicago, obviously hip hop's a big thing. And I got to basically go back to the studios. You know, we were like a pop rock band, but these guys that we hired kind of did more of the rap stuff. And so I started kind of shadowing them very lightly, just watching. And then eventually I started doing the intern thing at studios. And I did that for a couple years in Illinois. And then I actually, after a couple years of being in the rap world, producing and engineering and getting my chops on so many vocal productions, mainly just vocals on like ripped YouTube beats at the time. Like it was just, you rip it off YouTube into, you know, Pro Tools, and then you track a vocal, and then they want you to mix and master like while you're recording it. And then in 3 hours, you know, the song is done, ready to release. And that was kind of my first couple years of engineering and getting my, you know, experience. And I look back on that now, so that was 10, 11 years ago, like that made me really good really quick, because you're basically working with like, somebody comes in, you know, I was assistant intern, so I'm getting like $20 an hour. Someone's like, I got $60. I need this song done by the time, you know, we're out in 3 hours. So it's like, cool. Record, you know, mixing on the fly, and then quote unquote mastering, which then was like an L2, you know, taking off 8 dB and calling it a day, you know, and the distortion was great for hip hop. And that's kind of, you know, that was my first taste of mastering, watching these hip hop producers, you know, kind of do everything. You know, they made the track or rip the track off YouTube, they engineer it, they mix it, and then quote unquote master with some limiter stacked on a limiter, and then you print it onto a CD. We were still doing CDs, so you burn the CD, the guys go out, put it in their car or whatever, smoke a joint, get high, and that's where the song dies. Like it never goes anywhere else, and rinse and repeat. So that was like my initial you know, learning experience of studio world. It was very fun, I'll say, for overall. It was kind of intense. Like a lot of the rap culture is very weird, or not so much weird. Well, it is weird, but it's real. There's real gangs. There's real violence. There's real, you know, things that rappers talk about. It's probably exaggerated, but there's a lot of things I saw, witnessed, that after a couple years is the reason why I kind of left rap and music for a bit. Is I actually got threatened for my life that a couple guys were going to show up at my wife and I's apartment if I didn't change an 808 line that they had messed up 4 times. And they basically sent this 808 line, and I had been mixing the song that they wanted, and they kept sending the wrong version. It was out of key. And by the 4th time, I was like, I need more money. Like, this is taking way too long. And basically they were like, nope, you change it or someone's going to roll up. Like,
oh my God,
they're going to come through and they're going to be knocking at your door, like with the gun. So that was one of the main
just like
things.
Imagining you like mixing an 808 with a gun to your head.
Yeah.
Like, is this the way you want it?
Exactly.
Oh my God.
So after that, I kind of was like, you know what? I'm making crap money. If this is the music industry, if this is what this is like, I can't do this. Like, sustainability is really big for me. I didn't realize that back then, but now it is super important. I think I knew it on some level back then, but my wife and I talked and we're like, we got to figure something else out, because this isn't worth having someone knock on my door with a gun to change a freaking 808. So I started looking for like jobs, you know, 9 to 5. And I had a buddy in Florida who was working at a large church and kind of called me and said, like, I got this audio creative position. If you want to come to Florida and interview for it, you know, it's West Palm Beach, next to the ocean, salary, benefits, whole 9 yards. So I was like, well, it's not exactly what I want to do, but it sounds better than what I'm doing now. So I was like, let's go interview. I interviewed, got the job, moved like 2 weeks later to Florida. And that's where I kind of spent, I spent 2-ish years there working at this church, doing a ton of audio stuff, front of house more so. They built a studio. I was barely a part of that, but I was also working at a different studio on top of my job. And that's kind of when I really started to do live instrumentation. I got really into mastering. That's when I went to mix with the masters. And originally through all this, the first...
So you're just like side hustling on like the weekends.
Oh yeah, just like 80-hour weeks, like full-time job, then studio job. Wow. And until I went with mix with the masters, the biggest takeaway, it was incredible. And Andrew Sheps was actually there too. It was I was one of the first few years they did it, maybe the second year. And at the time they would have the guys, there's multiple studios at this place in France, and the guys the masters, would come and teach, and then they would be doing projects in the other studios. So like Andrew Sheps was there the whole time working on stuff, and Joe was there. So we kind of got like a 2-for-1 deal, which was really neat because obviously Joe does like Chevelle and Tool and Nine Inch Nails and all these hardcore, not hardcore, but metal-y bands. Kind of hardcore, actually. Queens of the Stone Age. Yeah. And then you have Andrew Sheps, who's, kind of pop world, Katy Perry, Jay-Z, Marley, So you've got this really nice polar opposites kind of teaching and looking at your music, and you work with them, they work with you. And the biggest takeaway was, the last couple days, they, back then they took us like aside and said, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing with your life? What do you want to do? Like, is this legit? Or are you just here for fun? Are you just like really rich? Or did you pay? Like, what's going on? And basically they both said like, hey, I think you've got the chops to do this, but you need to put yourself in a position to like learn from better people. Like put yourself in a position to succeed. If you really want to do this, and it's what I wanted to do. Like I've been 4 years into the audio, doing pretty good work. And I felt like I had plateaued in Florida with the studios I was working at. And I just kind of felt like, man, if I'm going to really give this a go, I need to learn from the people who make the records I like. And Nashville was a big part of that. And a lot of the records I liked were coming out of Nashville. And we had some friends here too. And so they were like, at Mix with the Masters, Joe was just like, you need to move. You need to move to Nashville. If you really want to give this a go, like give yourself a chance to actually have a career and learn from the people who make the records you like. And that was the life-changing moment. Like I flew home, talked to my wife, and I was like, we got to move. And she was like, yeah, we got to move. And my wife is incredible. Like she's always been supportive of my music. One of the reasons why I married her is like she married me when I was in the band making, no money, and always just telling me like, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. I've quit mentally way more times before she has, and she's always like, no,
wow,
you can do
that's
this.
Amazing.
So so she was like, yeah, let's do it. And my job at the church I was working at was, it wasn't really a good fit. It wasn't what I wanted to be doing. It was a constant friction for me of being pulled in two different directions on so many levels, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, of just, this isn't where I want to be. This isn't where I want to be investing, a career type thing. Like I didn't want to move up the ladder of the megachurch world. I wanted to make records. And so I quit the salary job. Like 2 weeks later, we packed up our whole apartment in Florida and drove to Nashville in the winter. And I had one song ready to go to produce and engineer. And this was, 7 years ago. Like I was doing a lot of producing, engineering, and mastering. But I got to
Jack
Nashville.
Of all trades.
Yeah. At that time, I thought my approach was I need to do all of this to make money. Like there's no way to do one thing. And my view of that has changed so much. Of you can definitely do one thing and make way more money.
I want to talk more about that in when we get to the end of your story.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So yeah, we moved to Nashville. Like my friend Phil Lawson and his wife Kate. I grew up kind of with them in Illinois, and Phil and I had been playing music, and he had done he's a drummer, and he's with Kelsey Ballerini now, and he's been tour drumming. His whole
big drumming.
Yeah, his whole life basically. He's a prodigy, one of the best in Nashville. And so we moved in with them at their house. They graciously let us stay with them for a few weeks till we found an apartment. And you know, that's kind of the move I made. It was very intense. Like, we didn't have a place to live. We didn't have jobs. We just packed a U-Haul, drove it across, 14 hours.